Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our backyard. I've got a handful of containers I'd like to share with you this morning. It's mid-March here along the upper Texas Gulf Coast in Zone 9B, and I've had some of these planters planted since, oh golly, end of November, early December, and others are just recent. And so I wanted to go through them in this very early spring because some of them are just starting to come to life. So I'm going to go through them one by one and maybe you'll get an idea or two. So let's start off with my urn container. The urn container is as a thriller contains Mystic Spires blue salvia, and I do truly love this salvia. It really is a performer for me here south of Houston. I had cut it back. It grew gorgeously last year. It's been in this container for almost a year now, and it performed wonderfully. You can see I've got a lot of new buds coming up. But I had cut this back very early spring, and it, of course, when you cut salvia back, it does rejuvenate it, and it is blooming really, really nicely. The native bees, the butterflies, the hummingbirds all come to check out Mystic Spires. It really is just a really solid, reliable performer in the garden. And the reason I like it in this container, because I do have Mystic Spires in the ground in beds also, but one of the reasons I like it in this container is because it is on my patio and I get to see hummingbirds and all the wonderful creatures come and visit this this salvia. So it is the main feature or the thriller in this urn. And I will switch out the other pieces around it. So even though it's not flowering right now because it's not sunny, I have had this in the urn as long as I have had the Mystic Spire salvia. And the reason I've kept it is it's performed and it is a beautiful spiller. This is the Blew My Mind Dwarf Morning Glory, and it really is such a pretty blue color. You can see it really is a true blue, and it only blooms when the sun is out. So these blooms will just open up and they're bright and they're cheery, and I've kept this in. I thought I was going to take it out, but I've kept it in and I've been very, very happy with the way it's performed. And the next two are not getting as much sun. So this happens to be a little viola. I have some of these in my other baskets too. This is a Peach Johnny Jump Up. And it probably does need a little bit more sun. I mean, it is blooming and it has cheery little blooms on it, but it really hasn't taken off a whole lot. And I think it's just because it gets more shade on this side. This urn gets morning sun, and so about 2 o'clock in the afternoon is when it goes in the shade. So all of these plants do want full sun, and I think these two on the end just get a little bit too shaded. My sweet Alysum over here does do beautifully. I'm going to show you another container with it. I have it every winter, and I'll keep it through the spring because it is a really good performer, and it is Snow Princess, which is a lobularia hybrid. And Snow Princess for me is such a winter performer. I love it. I just absolutely love it. It doesn't do well in the summer here, but as far as winter and spring, it is a very good performer for us. So my urn planter brings a lot of sunshine and joy and butterflies. Now I'm going to go to the next one, which is right next to it, and this is my kind of aqua colored planter. Not only do I love the blue color of this planter, I love the height, and I do have all soil in it, so I've made sure to switch it out and change it up because I do want the plants to be very healthy in here since it is a little bit narrower for a huge and large planter. But the main star is another Salvia, and this Salvia, oh, I am so happy. It is the first year I've had this particular Salvia. It is part of the Wish series out of Australia. Let's see. And this one is called Wendy's Wish. It has bright pink flowers with pinkish brown buds, and it is so true. I've had this since late fall also, and it bloomed gorgeously, and then it went through it didn't bloom during the winter. I did protect it because it doesn't do well in freezing temperatures, and we did have that polar vortex come in January, so I brought it in and cut it back, and oh my goodness, this thing is beautiful. Part of the Wish series in the Australia, I guess, Salvia that has Wish in the name is part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation that proceeds go to it. And I have now 3 of these. I just love this Salvia. I love the foliage. I love the way it grows. It brings in all the pollinators. It's a huge hit in my mind. I love the color from the pot also. The next 2 plants in it I will be switching out because they're my winter plantings, but I do have a phlox, which is a garden, it's just a straight up phlox, and it will grow probably until mid-spring, depending on when I want to switch things out. I will take this out. It won't do well in the summer. And then of course for us, Snapdragons. This one has to, oops, let me bring it here. This one happens to be the Snaptastic. And the reason I buy this is because it only grows to be about 10 to 12 inches tall. It looks like you plant those apart. It's the 14 to 16 inches tall. But what I've known is when it's in the winter, they don't grow as vigorously because it is cooler. And so in a pot like this, I get a lot of enjoyment of the color that they bring to the winter and early spring gardens. They've just gone through their flush, and so last winter this was timed beautifully in the coloring here. The Salvia are just getting ready to bloom, and the Snapdragons will bloom now here and there, but I will be replacing these 2 to go into this gorgeous Salvia pot. On to the next. Next to my back door, I have another taller container. I got this last year, and I had a beautiful celosia in the summer. So come late fall, I wanted to replant this, and interestingly enough, this plant, which is the Amethyst Superbena, was looking pretty ragged, and I cut it back. Then a squirrel got in and just upended it and actually pulled it apart. And I had one hanging out of the side from what the squirrel had dug. And so what I did is I took those 2 now little pieces and planted them along the side. This is a verbena hybrid. Huge, vigorous grower. Love what this does in the landscape. I do have it planted in a bed also, but I put these little straggler pieces, and this one was hardly anything. I thought, I should just throw it, but let me try to put it in here, and it has just grown. I tell you, I've been so impressed with this plant. But what I did is I brought in a new plant for me, And I am excited about this. This is an Esperanza, which has these buttery yellow, gorgeous trumpet-shaped flowers that hummingbirds love. And I love having plants like this in containers that are close to my back door. And you can see the Esperanza is getting really close to blooming. And I love the airiness. Here's a bloom down here. They're getting ready. I just love the airiness and feel of this Esperanza. It happens to be listed as a shrub. So let me show you the back of this tag. It says it gets 6 feet tall and 5 feet wide. So at some point I will plant it in my landscape. And I'm just so excited because I got to see it flower, and I planted it late fall, but it has really loved this pot and it is growing gorgeously. So this is my thriller, and I'm hoping to keep it as a thriller for this year before I need to bring it out into the landscape. But again, this brings all the beautiful creatures next to the house and on the patio, which of course I absolutely love. So I do have a spot for something here, and I do have some seeds that I'm thinking about planting, but I'm not going to mention that yet because, oh golly, I don't know. This might just be enough. Isn't that sparkling amethyst gorgeous? Ugh, I think it's so pretty. On to the next. If you follow my channel, you know I like to have planters in my trees, and they do get a little bit of shade in the summer, but in the spring, before my trees leaf out, they get full sun. So I have purchased some plants this spring just to have some really enjoyment in the yard before things really start to wake up. So what's new for me is I rarely buy a planter that's already made up, and that's the white one over here, but I really like it. So I purchased this planter at my favorite nursery. This is a mix that's called Wedding Song, and it has 3 different types of plants in it. Now, this one is also an Alysum or a lobularia hybrid. The others I've purchased separately, and I plant them in my planters. This one happens to be White Knight. I'm going to show you what it consists of. So White Knight, then there is a Super Bells, which is a Calibrachoa, and then the Superbena Whiteout, which I have 3 Superbenas this year because of how well the purple amethyst did. I'm not a huge fan of the Calibrachoa because they don't do well for me, these little Super Bells, but so far this spring they have not complained. So I am happy to see them. Typically we just get, it's too moist down here for them. Calibrachoa like it a little bit drier, and so, but with that being said, they're doing very well right now. And look at this Whiteout Superbena. Isn't that gorgeous? So when I got this, it wasn't blooming. The Superbena weren't blooming, but now they are, and I think they are just fantastic. Got a lot of buds that are also on them, and so I just think this planter is so pretty, and it's so different than what I typically do. Like I said, I typically don't purchase recipes that are already together, but I do really enjoy this. I will probably be taking this Superbena out and putting it in the landscape when this container is done. Love it. The next container is a bright yellow container. I just think it has such cheeriness to it. So in front, what I have is I have French marigolds, which do not grow very tall. And in fact, they only grow 6 to 7 inches tall. And that's why I have them in this container. I just think they're really cute. So I have a yellow and this kind of goldish with the yellow center, which is offset nicely with what's in the back, which is a Nemesia. This is a first for me, this Nemesia hybrid. And it will open up. These cheery little flowers are so many, and they open up. I think they're so pretty, and they're all along here. They're closed now because it's super early morning, but they just open up into these beautiful explosion of color. So even though I like to tape early in the morning, this is probably one that it's unfortunate because all the little Nemesia behind there aren't open, but it is a pretty yellow container. Based on how well my sparkling amethyst Superbina did, I saw this at the nursery and thought, oh, I want this in a container. And this has been blooming gorgeously for the last month or so. And this is called Peachy Keen. I love how this flowers. This is again another Superbina, which is a verbena hybrid. And I will probably put this into the landscape also, into my beds, because it does, supposedly it's supposed to be okay for here for zone 9. So I love what the color does. When it opens to this vibrant, really vibrant peach color. And then as it matures, it gets lighter. So it has multicolors on this container, and it will come back. I can see a lot of buds, new buds that are coming. This is just kind of in its down little cycle right now. Lots of buds forming up, but I love these Superbenas, as you can tell. I haven't decided where I'm going to put this yet. This happens to be my Super Tunia Vista bubblegum. This is the petunia hybrid that is well known to gardeners, that does very well in most of the United States. And it does pretty good for us in the late winter and spring. It doesn't do well for me during our hot and humid summers. But I haven't decided where I'm going to put this. I bought this at my favorite nursery in a gallon container for only $9.99. And so I thought, you know what? A gardener talked me into it and said, you know, it does add a lot of pop of color into the landscape, which I agreed, especially early spring when not a lot is blooming. So I do love the cheeriness. Right now I have it right outside where I can see it from my patio door or my kitchen window, and it just brings a smile. So I haven't decided where I'm going to put this yet, but I did want to include it because as a container, it is going to fill in gorgeously, and I'll be able to have it for at least a little while. So for all of you geranium growers, this is new for me. I typically don't get geraniums and grow geraniums down here. But I love this color, and it's like a double geranium. This one is called, Patriot Rosal Linda. This happened to have such a gorgeous color to it. And it's almost so vibrant that it doesn't pick up well on camera. This bright, bright pink. So we're going to try it. Any of you Zone 9 growers, do you grow geraniums? Curious. So here's my last decorative container that I'm going to share with you. Look at this snow princess. This is the Alysum, sweet Alysum, the Lobularia hybrid. And I know it's a little bit sunny here, but oh, she just performs so beautifully. And in this container, I put in little violas, and they've been growing so well. I've got orange and then this peachy, purpley color, and it's been such a pretty container. I like how this sweet Alysum just trails down, and I've had this all winter, and it has brought such joy. That's why I have these in containers all winter long, because they provide so much interest. And of course the violas down here do very well in our winter and early spring. They can take our lows, which typically we don't get lows down here, and they just perform so beautifully. This container happens to be in full sun, and so this is a container I will replace because none of these do well in our heat and humidity once it starts to ratchet up. So I do have other containers, but they're not decorative. They're more type landscape type containers, and so I didn't want to go through those this morning. I just wanted to talk about the containers that have brought a lot of joy and put a smile on my face throughout this winter and early spring. Well, thanks for joining me, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day today, and I hope to see you soon.